Here I am making a video I didn't want to have to make. Sprint is a topic I was sure by now had been covered enough. Enough videos have been made, and there's nothing I could say that hasn't already been said. But I've had a change of heart. I've noticed something I never noticed before, and it lies within the arguments people use to defend Sprint. And I use the term defend very loosely here because I don't see how Sprint can actually be defended. Now let me preface something. When I talk about things, I of course focus on the multiplayer side, and usually focus on gameplay mechanics at that. If Halo was strictly a single-player game, I wouldn't care what changes they made, because it would be played primarily for the story, at least for me. Which leads me straight into one of the most common forms of Sprint defense, it doesn't make sense that Spartans can't do these things. Spartans have been able to sprint in the lore from the very beginning. Well, this pisses me right the fuck off, because the person completely ignores Sprint as a gameplay mechanic, something that affects the moment-to-moment experience, goes on to justify its existence simply because a Spartan ran in a book one time. Whoop-de-fucking-do. Just because it makes sense for a person to be able to sprint, doesn't mean it automatically has to be included in a fucking video game. What if you were playing Forza and you realize, hey, I can't get out of my car. I'm stuck in my car. This isn't real life. In real life, I can get out of my car. Well, the game doesn't require you to get out of the car. Its mechanics and design isn't built so that it's necessary to do so. But I read this novel one time and it had a car in it, and in the novel, the person was able to get in and out as he or she pleased. See how fucking stupid that sounds? That's how dumb that argument sounds to me when it comes to Sprint being in Halo because it exists in the lore, or because it makes sense simply because people can sprint in real life. These are bullshit arguments. Then you have people who actually try to justify Sprint from a gameplay standpoint, which as far as I'm concerned is next to impossible. What I'm about to say has been said a million times before, but Sprint is an illusion. Its supposed benefits aren't even real, and I'd argue that gameplay-wise it has absolutely nothing but negative connotations. What's it even supposed to do? What is it even actually supposed to improve on? Well, people think Halo is too slow. They don't like being constricted to a steady movement speed. They think games need a Sonic the Hedgehog mode to be relevant. And I'd argue that in most games, Sprint works just fine. It's not a bad mechanic outright. But Halo was built without Sprint in mind. Its maps were designed for moving at one speed. Jumps were designed to be made moving at one speed. Cover was strategically placed. Routes were strategically lengthened or shortened. Everything was balanced and designed around Halo not having Sprint. So I'd argue putting Sprint in the game literally changes everything. If you put Sprint into a Halo map, it would be awful. It wouldn't work. Reach showed us that. It had to design maps around some people having it, and some people not, and ended up with the worst map selection in the series, and arguably the most gross form of Sprint thus far. 343 realized this, so in Halo 4 they doubled down and designed everything around Sprint. Let me stop right there. Notice how I said designed around Sprint? That implies you have to change something to make it work. Sprint didn't work in Halo, so what we have to do is change Halo to work with Sprint. But if you have to do this, then you defeat the purpose of the concept. Halo was too slow. People want to get places faster. Sprint lets you get places faster, but you have to make the maps bigger in the first place to allow Sprint to not ruin everything, even though it still does. But now it does without any of the benefits. If you sprint from one end of Ragnarok to the other, it will take you about the same amount of time it took you in Halo 3. Same goes for Truth and Midship, or the Pit and Pitfall. If it takes you the same amount of time to get somewhere sprinting in Halo 4 and 5 as it does not sprinting in Halo 1 through 3, then that means the thing Sprint is supposed to do is absolute bullshit. It doesn't actually get you anywhere faster. It just makes you think you are. It's an illusion. Can anyone come up with a single positive gameplay reason for Sprint existing? It lets you make longer jumps. No, it doesn't, because if Sprint wasn't in the game, that same jump would be designed to be made at base movement speed. It allows you to get places faster. I just fucking explained how that's an illusion. It isn't real. Were you not listening? It lets me sprint up to my opponent when they're shooting at me and I can double melee them. That's a bad thing. That's not good. That's not fun. That's a downside to Sprint. Uh-oh. Fav, are you telling me that not only does Sprint provide absolutely no good improvements to the gameplay, but it actually damages it and causes problems? Yes, thank you, person who was paying attention. Sprint fails to do the thing it was trying to improve and now adds a plethora of problems. The maps are now stretched out and designed for Sprint, but what about when you have to bring your gun up and actually shoot somebody? Well, now you're moving at base movement speed in an area designed for Sonic. Gotta go fast! No, you gotta slow down right now and shoot that guy. But the nearest cover is over there because the maps are stretched out, and I'm in one of those dead zones due to the map stretching. So now I have to put my gun down again and sprint away to get to cover because the game was designed for a faster movement speed than the one I'm currently moving at. Sprint encourages double melees, running away, stretched out maps with dead zones featuring virtually no cover. It completely changes map design and makes the actual part of the game where you're shooting less fun, because the game isn't optimized for the movement speed where you partake in the shooting aspect. And for those people saying, just have a no sprint playlist, literally impossible. The game is built around it. Removing it means nothing would work. And honestly, it's important for the game to play consistently across all game modes. Finally becomes the most prominent form of defense. It's the people who look at Halo 5 and say things like, sprinting is tied to your shields. The map are designed around it, and the abilities complement it now. We have thrusters to make strafing less clunky coming out of sprint. We can mantle now, so all the problems sprint caused with the control scheme and crouch jumping are eliminated. We don't need to crouch jump anymore. You now do cool things like slide and Spartan charge, and they're all mechanics that branch off directly from the sprint mechanic. Halo 5 is fun, it's competitive again. Yes, it has sprint, but they made it not nearly as bad as it used to be. That's the problem right there. Again, you didn't just sit there and explain to me my sprint is good. All you did was tell me about how just not quite as bad as it used to be. There was nothing in there that said this makes the game inherently better. All I heard was a million things that had to change and be implemented for the sake of one mechanic that didn't work. So rather than accept the fact that it didn't work in Halo, they changed Halo. Now Halo isn't Halo anymore. In Halo, you never put your gun down. Maps were designed with movement and combat built into the same gameplay. Now in Halo, you have the shooty part and the running around part. You see, they didn't add sprint to Halo. They put sprint at the forefront of the entire experience and were forced to build a game around it. Because it absolutely had to be in the game for some fucking reason. We don't care if we have to gut everything that made Halo great to implement it by jacks, we're going to do it. It's like if a car company came out with this new car. The car wasn't made for the road it was driving on. It was obstructive. It took up multiple lanes. It was way too big. Just flat out didn't work. Now imagine, rather than simply removing the car from the road system that it wasn't built for, they decided to change everything around it just so the new car could work. They had to widen the lanes. They had to make overpasses higher, etc., etc. It's like they took something and then instead of gutting the thing that didn't work, they changed the system around it so that it would work. Even though it would be a lot simpler just to remove it. Wouldn't that be stupid? If something breaks your system, remove it. If something breaks your game, don't break everything else around it just so people can't tell. Remove the game-breaking mechanic and focus your resources on something that actually improves the game. Instead, they focus all their resources on making sure something doesn't ruin it. It's not worth it, because as I've stated before, it doesn't actually do anything. Sprint is the square peg being shoved in the round hole. It's the piece of the puzzle that just doesn't fit, because it's from a different fucking puzzle. In conclusion, there's a few people who know exactly why sprint is in the game. They cram sprint into Halo because it's basically in every other game. It's familiar to gamers, and some just expect it to be there. They don't care if it breaks everything, or if it has no positive implications. When these people click their left analog sticks, they expect to go faster. They don't care if it actually does anything in the long run. And they don't care about all this shit I just said. They want to put their gun down and run around because that's what they're used to. Sprint in Halo, ladies and gentlemen, is nothing more than a form of advertising. Every piece of gameplay footage advertises that this game lets you gotta go fast. And the people in charge are too afraid to make a game that doesn't let you. And it doesn't matter if it has only negative implications. It doesn't matter that sprint literally does nothing good and that it's an illusion. Publishers don't think a game without sprint can sell. And they're going to shoot themselves in the foot every time and time again because they don't have faith in its players. All it does is take a little bit of explaining. Hey, our game doesn't need sprint because we built our maps around not having it. Our gameplay is tailor-made to accommodate the player not sprinting. Here's some of the benefits to us making a game this way. Here's how it differentiates us from other games. Explain this shit just like I did, only a lot nicer, and don't use profanity. I don't know what else to say. I don't know how I could possibly hammer it home any further. Sprint does nothing but hurt the gameplay. I hear that all the time. Halo has to evolve. It can't stay the same. I agree with that, but that doesn't mean go ahead and add something that's bad. You add things that build on Halo's strengths. You don't add something that hurts it just because it has to have something new and you can't come up with any good ideas. Don't add mechanics to a game to try and get people from other communities to switch over. They're going to get your game and play it anyway. You'll get their money, but now after the hype dies down, they'll go back to their main game and you'll also lose the actual Halo fans because this game doesn't play like Halo anymore. Let's theoretically say that Halo is the top FPS shooter. And there's a series that used to be great and have a community, but it lost its way trying to be something it's not. And that series, let's call it Call of Duty, has decided that instead of going back to what made it great, it's going to double down and try to appeal to you, a Halo player. So it ditches iron sights and removes sprint and builds its game around it. Would you play that game? Maybe, but would it replace the game you're already playing? Would it make you switch over? I'd argue it wouldn't. So not only do they fail to capture your attention, but now they further alienated their old fan base, and they don't get the game they want either. Well, that's what's happened to Halo. Halo was great. It's such a strong, thriving community, but in an attempt to steal players from another, they have slowly lost everybody. And I would argue that sprint is the biggest reason for this. So desperate to fit it where it doesn't belong, and now so far down the rabbit hole that 343 is willing to do anything to justify its existence and make it seem like it belongs, even if it means making a different game entirely. I hope I made sense. I hope I didn't upset anybody. That wasn't my intention. As always, I just want you to think. Maybe you're sitting there and in your mind you're thinking, hey Fav, you're wrong. Sprint does make the gameplay better, and here's why. I'd love to hear those reasons and get some conversations rolling. I have an open mind, and it's open to be changed. Honestly, I just want Halo to be successful. And if I thought Sprint was good for it, then I'd defend it just as much as I attack it now. If you like my stuff, hate my stuff, want to talk about my stuff, leave a like, dislike, or comment below, and of course share the video and subscribe for more. Till next time.